Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast.
Today on the show, I interview Matthew James Jones, a Canadian veteran, poet, and storyteller who's published widely in Canada, the US, UK, and France. He now lives full-time in Paris, where he teaches leadership at the École Militaire, but he also lives a life as a literary bohemian. Looking forward to sharing his story with you guys today, and enjoy the show. So welcome to the show, Matt. How are you doing today?
I am excellent. Welcome, Crystal. Thank you very much for having me.
I believe I've already interviewed a lot of your friends. There's a lot of poets in Paris. Who would have thunk it? There's a lot of you guys hanging around here.
We come for the hype and we stay for the cheese.
I completely agree. I think I felt the same way moving here. Hype and cheese. But I want to go back to the start of your story. Where are you from and what brought you to Paris?
I am a Canadian. I was in the Canadian military for 13 years. And I did a bunch of things. I drove a warship for quite a few years. I eventually did a bunch of army stuff. I deployed to Afghanistan, and then I retired to begin a new life as a writer and wanderer and teacher, creative. And those travels eventually brought me to Paris, where I have settled in and living in the illustrious Pantin.
Oh, I know Pantin very well. So walk me through this. You go from military man driving warships to poet in Paris. I mean, how does one make that transition while you were in the military? Were you writing? Were you thinking about these things, or did that completely change after you got out?
Well, I was always a scribbler. And like most writers who I encounter in Paris was, encouraged at an early age. Matt, you got to write something. You got to do things with this. You've got a special gift. You need to go and use it. I think people should stop telling children that immediately because it just sets them down an extremely difficult life path.
You are not gifted.
There's a lot of gifted people out there.
Yeah.
How did it happen? Painfully. I work now at the École Militaire, and I'm teaching a leadership course to the senior officers of the French military. And I've become this bridge for them between A, the military world and the creative world, but also B, between the military and the civilian world. How did I become this sort of middle road transition? It was difficult.
Yeah.
After I left the military, I worked as an artistic director of a poetry festival in Ottawa for a while called VerseFest. And I had to work with a lot of gentle poets who had extreme crises, were very precious about the writing, very precious about the space. And I just couldn't tell anyone what to do anymore. Volunteering, you actually have to coax and you actually have to negotiate. And I had to soften about 500 times to become this lovable, doughy human you're talking to now.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a big difference between military Matt, I feel like, and poet Matt. Those are two different worlds completely. I mean, have you found any commonalities between your old life and your new life? I mean, even now working at the École Militaire, which is quite prestigious. I mean, you're telling French military men what to do? I mean, how does that even work?
I could never tell them what to do. I could never do that. I can sometimes tell them how they do it, or I can give them ways to think about it. Today, for example, I pulled out the old Nietzschean philosophy that he talks about in his some of his earlier writings about the comparison of Apollo versus Dionysus. We have these Apollonian impulses and we have these Dionysian impulses. The Apollo part of us wants things to be orderly and bright and straight and clear, and the Dionysian loves debauchery, is passionate, and so on. So we want to talk about creativity. It's probably a combination of these two impulses.
Hmm. I completely agree. And I mean, how would you define creativity?
Oh, I would never. I would never even try. Uh, okay, fine, I will.
Yeah.
Actually, the officers defined it for me because I went all into this in a module last term. And one of them finally concluded, screw it, Matt, there is no such thing as creativity. There is only courage. And
Ah,
then
yes.
the artists kind of nodded sagely when they heard that line because all of them feel the fear of like, oh, you've got an idea and now you're going to say it in front of a people. What if they think you're stupid?
Hmm.
So this is probably one of our oldest fears as human beings is the fact that we're going to say something dumb and everyone's going to laugh at us.
Hmm.
So this willingness to go and take those risks that we need to take in order to find the edges where things are both interesting and yet accessible, you need courage in order to do that. You asked me about how does the military link with becoming a poet, and for me, this distinction is not that difficult to follow
Hmm.
because the first poems I published were about war.
Yeah.
Literally kind of branded myself as a war poet. My book that's coming out next year, Drones, is definitely a war book. So I haven't really separated from my past, and I think it's impossible to separate ourselves from our past. We just sort of carry it around with us.
Hmm. And did you find poetry and storytelling as like an outlet from your military ways? Like, was it a type of therapy for you? Was it just a part of who you were already, or how did that develop?
It was definitely a place of healing for me in which I could talk about difficult things and share them. It was also a place where I felt that I could speak for a larger group than myself.
Hmm.
I write a story about a traumatized veteran, and I know a bunch.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not just talking about like Matt Jones. I'm talking from the position of like the veteran, and
Yeah.
that is a very intimidating thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do. There's a lot of like imposter syndrome when you start talking for some category of people, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's a bunch of like very damaged humans, many of whom I know, people I've worked with. So I started running writing workshops and stuff and hosting open mics. I've done years of both and saw people getting up on the stage. And not everyone wants to read about war stuff, but everybody's got some pain,
Yeah.
whether a breakup pain or a trauma or an assault or whatever. Everyone gets on the stage, or many people get on the stage in a night, and it is not an intellectual exercise designed to prove how smart they are. It is an emotional exercise designed to engender sympathy and compassion or some other type of feeling.
Yeah. And connection.
Connection. And that part I think is real in both workshops and in open mics. The difference being when someone comes into my workshop and says, here is my trauma piece, I know not to give it edits.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. And like you're touching on something that's probably pretty big here in Paris is like the writer and poet world is it's quite connected here and quite large. Would you say that you know a lot of writers, a lot of poets, and do you guys work together? Do you collaborate? Do you help each other? Is there competition there?
Well, I feel like that's what's happening right now. How this podcast is happening.
Yeah.
We happen to know some people in common who are artists, and because of this collaboration, here we are. But yes, I belong to I think like 5 writing circles. I'm literally like overwhelmed with writing circles. If you want, you can find an English-speaking open mic almost any night in Paris,
Hmm.
and there are plenty of other things to do. And in terms of an actual like one-on-one collaboration, when people decide, hey, let's make a project together, that I find is a bit harder to get lift off on in Paris, mostly because everyone is so ridiculously busy, usually trying to chase the cheddar.
Yeah.
But, cost of living is high. People got to work. It's the same as every big city.
Yeah. And do you find that being a writer in Paris, is it living up to the hype? I mean, I feel like so many people are dreaming of moving to Paris and writing their novel in a cafe and being the next Hemingway. Like, has that dream come to fruition? Is it kind of a bunch of hype? How do you feel about it?
Um, People were drawn here by the hype, like I said at the beginning, and then they stayed when they look around and they realize so many people bought into the hype that it became real.
Mm-hmm.
And we did establish a bohemia in Paris, and there are some incredibly talented writers. And I remember leaving the military. I was traveling abroad for several years. I lived in Nicaragua for 6 months, and then I lived in China for a year. And the whole time, I was kind of getting better as a writer, and I was looking for serious edits on my first book and couldn't find a group. Couldn't find a group to meet my needs of kind of like the deep nerds. I wanted the deep nerds, you know? You know, in like the old like kung fu movies where the like acolyte shows up and he or she's got to carry like that pole across the shoulder with a bucket of water on either shoulder and you go up the stairs
Some
and like,
Karate Kid action, like someone your
yes,
sensei.
you put the buckets down and if the sensei sees you've spilled too many drops of water, he backhands you and sends you back down.
Yes.
And then you show up and everyone's doing the amazing punches in sync and you can see they're actually generating like ethereal force as they're using their magical moves and you're like, yes, these are the nerds that I want.
But you didn't find them.
Those were the nerds I found in Paris.
So this is where it is true in some ways where a lot of creatives are attracted to Paris and you do find like that common force, that common energy to kind of vibe off of.
I mean, the book that's coming out, it began at one point as a spreadsheet
Wow.
because as I am a systematic bastard who plans his books, and I literally brought in the spreadsheet to the other writers in my circle and got their critique at that fundamental foundational level. Then I brought in excerpts from the work weekly for like a year or two and got page edits, line edits, and larger story critique. Then I got help from the circle writing the grant proposal that I sent in. Then I brought in my query letter when I was trying to find an agent. So literally from its inception to its publication, the writer community in Paris has been helping me midwife this thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a community, and I've seen that over and over again. I've had a lot of guests from different groups, some of the groups you're a part of, and it seems like it doesn't feel like competition to me. It feels like just a general shared passion for what you guys are doing.
Well, I don't meet a lot of people who are writing exactly the same type of stuff that I'm writing.
Hmm.
Everyone kind of has to find their niche. In a way, the literary community is very welcoming, and in a way, the Parisian life is difficult, and you kind of have to make your own place in it.
Yeah,
Finding work and fighting with visa stuff and all of the things. Like as a Canadian, it hasn't been particularly easy.
yeah, yeah. So you kind of bond over that.
You bond over that, and I guess you privilege the creative part because in a way, the creative part is easier to build than the
Hmm.
other parts.
Why do you think creatives are attracted to Paris?
The cheese and the bread and the other creatives. It's
Yeah.
the sparkling, glittering conversation over rosé in the terrace, or walking up and down the canal and having a spontaneous picnic, or playing petanque in little sandy zones next to beautiful lush trees.
Hmm.
Constantly surrounded by beauty and aesthetics. Not only the beauty of the buildings and such, which are literally gilded in gold, but also the beauty of the people who are all like, not to generalize, but very aesthetically minded and
Hmm.
concerned in looking good. They're just constantly aware of what beauty looks like. Not that all writing is beautiful or is intended to be beautiful.
In your opinion, what does a good poem look like? What do you believe makes up a good poem?
Well, I might be a bit conventional in that I want to feel something,
Hmm.
not just from a poem, but literally from every piece of art, painting, sculpture, poem, prose, flash, dance, even a kind of a fringe art like bodybuilding. I want to look at a physique and feel something. I feel like if art isn't making you feel something, it's not doing it right, or it's kind of fallen into that zone I mentioned earlier of like pure intellectualization, where it is about a kind of narcissistic desire to prove something to the world.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. I think people want to read like wise things that come from life and come from experience, and they want to read the works of people whose cup has overflowed with too much living.
Mm-hmm.
I think Paris gives you that in a way as well, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a certain energy here. There's a certain type of person who comes here. And I think you've met a lot of them too. Quite adventurous, live some interesting things, and there's a lot to share here. And when you talk about other mediums inspiring you, like which other medium would you say inspires your writing the most? Like, would it be looking at a painting or watching a movie? Like, what helps you get that creativity flowing for your writing?
Well, first thought was music.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely music. Every time I write, I'm usually playing something in the background. It's these days it's become mostly like Zen music,
Yeah.
like literally some kind of soothing samurai lo-fi, or like just a chilled out dubstep mix, a chill step mix, or like literally like soothing guitar noises. I'm just all about calm
Yeah.
and wanting to just feel not anxious as I sit down to write, because I think the anxiety can give us the pressure to keep pushing and meet a deadline. But when you're trying to make something maybe ornate and beautiful, you don't want that extra stress. I don't think it should be stressful. My other thought was mostly it for me. It just comes down to putting my butt into the chair
Yeah.
and opening up the document and then working on the thing and saying, okay, I'm going to work on this for an hour now. One of the things I took away from the military was a horrifying discipline, which has eroded since I started walking this path. You know, a few years ago, if you had asked me what's the secret to writing a book, I would have said, oh, you got to work on it every day. And now at this point, I would say sometimes you don't get around to it,
Yeah.
but you still have to get back up on the horse. And in that way, it is a lot like the bodybuilding journey, because you're always kind of stuck with your body trying to guide it or shape it in the direction that you want. And the writing career is similar.
And why do you think it is that oftentimes creatives shy away from the things they want most? Like a lot of people say, I want to write a book, and then they don't sit down to write that book, or I want to paint, I want to learn how to paint, but then they never do it. I mean, what do you think causes us to stop ourselves from pursuing these things?
I have a few thoughts about that. One, doing those things is incredibly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Not only writing a book, like for example, that takes tremendous discipline. And if you want to write a good book, it involves a lot of reading and a lot of editing and a lot of talking to better writers, and having the humility to do that, and having the humility to learn and like take book recommendations from your elders, and then going and reading the books, then coming back the next week like Neo in the Matrix and being like, now I know Kung Fu. Just, you know, proceeding with the new knowledge. Like if you approach your art like a craft and you approach it like you are on a lifelong journey of mastering a difficult thing, and then it's sobering, but I think it's the only appropriate way to do it. If you approach art like I am a genius and soon the world shall see my glory, then you're going to be up for a lot of disappointments and pain. And I think I've met a lot of artists and writers who labor under this illusion of the instant genius.
Yeah.
And that is always a tragic thing, because it's like insecurity underpins the entire thing. It takes a lot of self-confidence to fail.
Mm-hmm.
when I did a writing exercise with the officers of the War College, I asked them, what is the leadership of failure? And all of them responded almost unanimously. They hadn't discussed it. They all did an independent writing assignment, and the result was each one of them was incredibly enthusiastic about failure. They're like, can't be a leader without failing.
Yeah.
Fail well, fail early, learn from your failures, and then rebuild quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership, creativity, maybe they're not so much a question of like, oh, the divine inspiration has struck me like a magic lightning bolt. And maybe it's just a question of resilience.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like that's an interesting standpoint because I think there is a lot of debate about that, how like the creative gods, like you said, they just come down on us and where did this idea come from? And but also it takes a lot of work and learning and just like anything, it takes time if you really want to be good at it.
Well, I also got into the writing game in my early 30s after having driven a ship and gone to war and done all sorts of very hard things.
Yeah.
So it was my own privilege to approach the writing game already having had a bunch of life experiences that I could then write about, and the hard-won wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I do hard-won wisdom, as if you're going to get any of that from me today.
That's what I'm here for.
I do remember after an open mic back in Ottawa, I read some pieces about war and they went over well, and a friend came up to me afterwards and he said, Matt, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous that you got to go to war and now you come back and you can write with this voice. And I'm like, please don't ever say that to anyone ever again.
Yikes.
Going to war has not made my life easier. I'm still trying to figure out the damage that I've done to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Many of my friends back in Canada with whom I served have now developed PTSD, like an astonishing percentage. And I'm just trying to be okay.
Yeah.
How do I privilege my writing these days? I talk to my therapist.
Yeah.
Try to heal myself. I try to make excellent breakfasts.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I'm feeling emotionally overwhelmed, I either write or I dance.
Mm.
So for me, learning how to emotionally regulate, I think, is one of the big challenges of the artist, because we are these humans who've been born, mostly, almost every artist I've ever met is just a tremendously sensitive person.
Yeah.
An uncharacteristically, uncommonly sensitive person. And then, ironically, we've ended up into these professions which demand so much rejection. And we're constantly rebuilding ourselves from that. So yeah, I think the game really is, how can I emotionally regulate myself and establish enough stability in order to do the work?
Yeah, because it is work. I mean, it's a release, but it's work. And I mean, a lot of people equate it to like exercise. Like we don't want to do the work, but we know we're going to be better afterwards.
It is a lot like exercise. I said earlier that creativity doesn't exist. Creativity is actually just courage in disguise. I believe that. I also believe that creativity is a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know some creatives like me who've been in the game for a long time, and we teach, we do all sorts of other things. We pull from different genres to make different art. And it is not difficult or intimidating for someone who works in creativity to go into a classroom, no plan, pull something out of their butts, and then have a wonderful, engaging time. One of my officers from the War College, who's been trained as a kind of human hammer, say, hey, human hammer, we need you to go in and I don't know, you're going to improv a puppet show for children. Go. Would be terrifying. Whereas you and I would have a great puppet show.
Yeah, you're creating something out of nothing. And what do you hope to do with your writing?
Mostly puppet shows.
War puppet shows.
War puppet shows. My book, the one that's coming out, Drones, is all about dehumanization. The way that the new technology of drones dehumanizes people, the way we dehumanize people with our racism, the way we dehumanize ourselves with our rhetoric, certain types of language. And it begs the question, what is a human?
Mm.
And obviously I need a Bigfoot in order to properly ask and answer that question, because you need someone who seems non-human in order to establish their humanness.
Yeah.
Frankenstein
Frankenstein show up.
Mary Shelley's playing the same game by making her monster more human than any of the humans. So there's a drone operator in Afghanistan who has been tracking a teenage boy for weeks. And then at some point he realizes that he knows at some point he might have to conduct a strike, like launch a missile at this kid. And he decides that he's kind of developed a relationship with this boy and he doesn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we enter into the story.
That's the beginning.
What do I want to do with that? I want everyone to think about drones. I want everyone to think about what a human is. And I want veterans who might have to, or soldiers who are serving now, or anyone who's either been through some of this stuff or might have to be through this stuff. I want them to ask the hard questions that I had to ask myself.
I think that I'm ready to pick up this book. It sounds fascinating. Drones, guys. It's out all winter 2023. Do we have exact date, Matt?
No, I have a vague category of fall/winter.
Okay, great. Well, we'll definitely have a link to that as well. And I mean, as being a sensitive person, as being a person who's lived through war, lived through hard things, but also as a writer who can talk about these things, what are your feelings about war? I mean, this could probably be a whole other podcast, but like sum it up for us after living through that. Is war a necessary evil? How do you feel about it?
No one hates war as much as a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, literally lost friends and pieces of myself
Yeah.
the Afghanistan conflict. And last summer, what happened? We spent 10 years there, longer, 20 years, many billions of dollars, many human lives were lost. And then the whole place flips back to the Taliban control in a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So the sense of waste and horror is what we're left with.
Yeah.
I think there's a long arc of writers who were also veterans who critique war. And I just want to, throw my name into the hat and be a part of this longer conversation. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that I see myself on par with some of these writers Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, Catch-22 comes to mind. These are guys who went to war and came back and they said, that was messed up.
Yeah.
That is a level of bullshit that we did to ourselves. That is a level of trauma that we did to ourselves that most people don't get.
Yeah. And it's not possible to fully get it unless you lived it. But that's also why we have books and, to try to get into that mindset, to open our minds to the horrors of these things without actually living them.
I partially agree. I think we can get it. I think the books are there to help us get it. But basically, if we just imagine I recently wrote an article for a lady, Marina Semenkova, which was about, she fled the Ukraine after Putin invaded.
Mm-hmm.
And she took solace in the Lera Arts atelier in Paris. And I wrote an article about her because she had this moment when she symbolically taped the windows of the atelier, as in the Ukraine they had taped, they were ordered by the government to tape their windows for when the Russian bombs landed. And I watched a video of her and her escape, which she kind of took on a shaky hand cam, fleeing the country, trying to get a bus, trying to get a train. Everything was blocked. Soldiers everywhere, roads closed off, people trying to exploit them, her and her boyfriend, on the way out of town. And I'm watching this video in the kind of the basement of the atelier. I started feeling super claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And it was this experience is the same for the artist, for the artist, but also the civilian. Mm-hmm. And for the soldier, in that it's just a question of being trapped
Yeah.
in a mechanism that is larger than you and being kind of forced to play your role in a
Yeah.
large mechanism.
Yeah, to perform in a way or something you didn't really want to sign up for.
That I don't think is impossible for people to get. In fact, that I think is just the less violent world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
We were born into a certain type of system, a certain type of government. We were born into a world on the brink of environmental collapse.
Yeah, yeah,
He laughs in order to not cry.
yeah.
And these aren't things that we change. So when we rail against the limits of our world and you feel impotent to change them, voila, you get it. You get what a soldier is like.
And how do we continue on to find happiness, to find, creative endeavors, living through all these things? Do you feel like collectively this is how we all kind of survive in a way to have this release and to try to get through and laugh without crying is through this connection, through creativity, through, trying these different endeavors?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't figured it out. And there are days that I feel like I've doubled down on the art path, and I've devoted myself to art for a long time, and art has like chewed me up and spat me out. And there are other days that I feel like this was always the person I was destined to become in some regard. And when I was a boy, I didn't say I'm going to be a fireman. I didn't say I'm going to go drive a ship. I said I'm going to write books one day. That's because they got me early, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
They told me I was good early, and then that just screwed up everything. But I've come to the same conclusion that you've come to, which is the only way through the storm is to help other people. And when you're helping other people, that's when you feel best about yourself. That's why once a month I do the by donation Write Time workshop, which is on my website as well. And I try to help other writers down the path with my hard-won insights and edits. And same as you. Try to help all of the people that you can and find the laughter when you can and savor it.
I think that is a great note to end on. And everyone, make sure you check out Matt's new book, Drones. And we will put up his website in the show notes so you can check back and pick it up. And Matt, is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners?
I don't know. You want me to read a poem or something?
I'd be down for you to read a poem. We'd love that. Let's read it.
Trouble. My hummingbird is blue eyes and a clever mouth and all trouble. This heart was a pond, calm and unrippled before she cannonballed in, and now I am all churn, froth. She is slim legs and a see-through shirt and definitely trouble. She is books and train tickets and chocolate and handbags, and no one understands how hard we love each other, and all our friends are jealous of our trouble. She is peonies and laughter and stories, and I've learned the hottest flame is blue-eyed trouble. Fallen off the cliff of love, there's no desperate branch or root to slow me, arms windmilling in the free fall. She is half cat and half goddess, and sometimes she calls me her beautiful fool, yet one old friend of mine with dust and ashes for blood thinks she is trouble. And I wrote this to tell her she is kind, tender, wise and fierce, with soft hair and glacier eyes and a mouth that melts with kisses. Love squeezes us with arms of quicksand, so we will choke and swim through silt to find our trouble.
Well, it's beautiful. I love that. That's a lucky girl. Is she still in the picture, Matt?
Sorry, no.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Parents for you, tread carefully, people.
Tread carefully, guys. Well, make sure you check out MatthewJamesJones.com, guys, and I will share that in the show notes. Pick up his new book, Drones, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you, Matt.
Absolute pleasure. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. we have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.